Becky Lynch is arguably the most popular member of NXT's Four Horsewomen, and for good reason. As a major merch seller and good wrestler in the ring, Becky has accomplished a lot in her 5 years on the main roster. The first ever SmackDown Women's Champion, a Royal Rumble winner, 1/3 of the first ever WrestleMania Women's Main Event, the first ever dual Women's Champion in WWE, and at the time of recording, is the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion at 399 days. However, in my opinion, while Becky winning the titles at WrestleMania 35 was great, the record-breaking title reign was a bit of a letdown, looking back on it. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great, and it all started with a botched crucifix pin on Ronda Rousey. So began the long and stale title run of supposedly the most popular wrestler in the company. At Money in the Bank, Becky pulled double duty defending both titles in typical badass fashion. She lost the SmackDown title to Charlotte Flair thanks to interference from Lacey Evans, who she had entered a feud with that lasted 3 agonizing months. Both title matches Lacey Evans had with Becky Lynch sucked, and it only exposed Lacey's inexperience in the ring. Not her fault, since she was still green and didn't need to be in the title picture at the time, but the WWE, because they love to punish its paying fans, the terrible feud continued, with Lacey partnering with Baron Corbin, who was in the middle of another terrible feud with the Universal Champion, Seth Rollins, hot off retiring one of the best of all time, Kurt Angle, the most popular man in WWE, and Lacey Evans took on real-life couple Seth and Becky, or Beth, if you will, at Extreme Rules in a mixed tag winner-take-all thing. The match was clunky, the good guys won, and the feud was a big ol' waste of time, and could have been spent toward, building a strong new opponent for Becky to fight. Why was Raw so colossally bad in 2019? Ugh. Now Becky was finally free of Lacey and free to fight her own battles going into SummerSlam. And after a nothing feud with the most boring wrestler on the roster, Natalya, search your feelings, you know it to be true, Becky moved on to a better feud with Sasha Banks. The Boss returned and turned heel to face Becky in a good match at Clash of Champions, which ended in a DQ retain for Becky, but they turned up the heat at Hell in a Cell, where Becky and Banks fought in an incredible Hell in a Cell match. They had literally the match of the night and gave everything they had towards winning the championship. Thanks to this banger of a match, for the first time since April, Becky felt like a legit fighting champion, and her opponent, Banks, felt like a worthy foe for other superstars. And their feud was literally the only good thing about Raw in 2019. I'm not kidding. Then Survivor Series had to ruin all continuity and title importance in favor of brand warfare. And so Lynch faced Bayley and Shayna Basler in a non-title triple threat match as the main event of Survivor Series to win brand supremacy points or whatever. Though Basler got the W, Becky put her through an announce table after the match to set up their Mania feud. Things started to look up for Lynch's title run again, with her facing Asuka at the Royal Rumble 2020. Becky and Asuka never had a bad match before, and so they stole the show, as always. And speaking of the Royal Rumble, Shayna Basler made her main roster debut in the Royal Rumble and continued her feud with Becky Lynch. And it kicked off real good when Basler was revealed to have a taste for human flesh and tried to eat Becky's neck on Raw. Awesome. It was so awesome. WWE was building a new monster badass for Becky to face at WrestleMania, since she had literally beaten everyone on Raw, and it was working. Sort of. Basler received the rocket push to WrestleMania and the Raw Women's Championship by eliminating every single person in the Elimination Chamber. Nice little first time ever for the Queen of Spades. But while Basler was busy being a badass, Becky started to wear fluffy coats, Thug Life meme shades, and a crown while sitting as guest commentator? Huh? Okay, look, Becky is funny, don't get me wrong, okay? But Basler was being presented as a female cannibal version of Brock Lesnar, and Lynch was being an arrogant jokester and not taking Basler seriously, like the Roman Reigns of olden days. Like, what? I thought Becky was the cool, thuggish badass around here. Not whatever this weird persona was, but it makes sense that the new strong challenger, Basler, triumphs over the overconfident, delusional champion at WrestleMania, right? No. In an underwhelming match at WrestleMania 36, Becky unbelievably retained her title with a counter roll-up on Shayna. Another lucky-ass pin at WrestleMania. Really? That's how the match ends. What was the point of building up Basler so strongly if she was just gonna lose? Why have her beat everybody in the chamber, bite Becky's neck off if she wasn't gonna beat Becky? All that build-up for nothing. Oh well, never mind. Becky wins, LOL. After WrestleMania, Becky disappeared with the title for a month, and after Asuka won Money in the Bank in May, the next night on Raw, Becky made her return and revealed that the Money in the Bank briefcase contained not a contract, but the Raw Women's title itself. She then revealed to the public that her absence was due to her being pregnant. And just like that, Becky's lengthy and disappointing title run came to an end. While Becky having a baby was wonderful news, congratulations you two, I'm so happy. The man was now on maternity leave at this time, and despite Asuka being the champion, the star power on the women's roster was severely lacking, because Becky never really put anyone over as champion near the end of her record-breaking title run. In fact, the whole division is in complete shambles now. Unless you're Charlotte Flair, you're just irrelevant, with Asuka being an afterthought as Raw Women's Champion. Like, oh my god, it's so bad. Becky's title run didn't have to be perfect, but for building new stars, having great feuds with established stars, and finally dropping the title at a big pay-per-view to make a new star, it's not a good look. So what went wrong? Simply put, Ronda Rousey's departure and the strange booking of Lynch and the entire women's roster. Say what you will about Ronda, but she was without a doubt the face of the women's division for a full year, even more so than Becky ever was because of her natural wrestling ability and drawing power. And when Ronda left to live a simple life with her hubby, WWE just handed the keys over to Becky and had her beat everyone on the roster like Ronda did, but without any real story or character development. Having Becky plow through the division is fine as long as you at least build some story or make it unique. It's just that I don't remember much about Lynch's title run except that one Hell in a Cell match and Asuka's match at the Rumble. And that's not good enough for someone like Becky, who, once again, is supposedly the most popular wrestler on the roster. With a new start, better booked opponents, a more satisfying ending at WrestleMania, it would have been so much better. So say it with me, Becky Lynch's Raw title run deserved better. So, the goal of this story is simple. Make Becky's year-long title reign meaningful. Her title reign is about highlighting new and underused female talent and their limitless potential rather than giving her forgetful feuds and matches that don't really mean anything in the long run. Also, all of Becky's opponents should help her grow as a three-dimensional character, which she really wasn't during her actual title run. We begin at WrestleMania 35 with the easiest change. Becky taps out Ronda with the Disarm Her to make Becky ultra strong and win both titles. After Mania, Becky will still need a little mini feud with a new heel for Money in the Bank, and that would be Lacey Evans. But that's it. That's the only time those two will fight for the title, because Lacey, as we all know, was not ready for a long-term feud with someone as popular as Becky. But she can still give a good effort in this one match. Lynch's next opponent after Evans will really get the ball rolling for this story, and that opponent is Nikki Cross. Specifically, Sanity's version of Nikki Cross. Now, reasons why I'm pushing Nikki. 1, I love Nikki Cross. 2, she can definitely pull a fun and great match out of Becky. And 3, she has proven in NXT she can hang with the best, including the champions. Go watch her matches with Asuka and Shayna Basler for the NXT Women's Championship for more proof. keep her down in NXT until May 2019. Nikki will not be forming a team with Alexa Bliss. Instead, she'll be in the Raw Women's title picture. Hype her debut up on Raw with her manic and destructive heel persona seen in vignettes, but we don't see her in person until Money in the Bank. Once again, it's important for Becky to have opponents who can push her character in a way where she can grow into someone more three-dimensional, like Drew McIntyre's first great WWE title run. That way, she can feel like a true champion who can tell a good story with any opponent, other than just Sasha and Asuka. After Lynch's win over Evans at Money in the Bank, Nikki Cross appears on the main roster for the first time on pay-per-view at the entrance ramp, smiles and laughs at Becky, and leaves. Later on in the night, Lacey is found knocked out backstage by an unknown assailant. Who could it be? Becky then has her match with Charlotte and loses her SmackDown title thanks to interference not from Evans, from Nikki Cross. This prompts Becky to cut a promo on Cross the next night on Raw on her costing her the SmackDown title. She demands Nikki come out and face her man to man. Instead, Lacey Evans comes out still nursing her minor injuries from Cross. Evans rightfully blames Cross for attacking her, but still wants another shot at the Raw Women's title tonight. That's when Nikki appears on the Titantron in a dark room and promises to tell the world the truth of her actions as long as she gets to fight Lacey in a #1 contenders match for Becky's title tonight. Cross dominates and pins Evans to win, and then she grabs the mic, crawls over to a defeated Evans and says, "It was me, Lacey." I'm not doing the accent. I can't do a Scottish accent. I'm sorry. "It was me, Lacey. I hurt you. I did it because you're pretty. Every girl wants to play with the pretty girls, not like Nikki. No one thought Nikki was pretty. No one wanted to play with Nikki. Now I make them play. I break them and take away everything that makes them pretty. And you're next, Becky. Nikki wants to play with you because you've got something pretty, and I want to take it." Nikki beats Evans with the mic, and Becky makes the save with Nikki escaping through the crowd, screaming bloody murder at a scowling Lynch. The match is set. And yes, this means Becky Lynch won't be working with Seth Rollins to feud with Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin for 10 years, but oh well. Moving on to Becky Lynch versus Nikki Cross for the Raw Women's Championship at Stomping Grounds. The match is very even until Becky counters Cross's finisher and locks her in to disarm her and makes her tap out clean. This is a good thing, trust me. An embarrassed and irate Cross blindsides Lynch after the match. She beats her with a title belt, with a chair, even busts her open on the steel steps. Lynch is hurt badly, and Nikki is handcuffed and dragged out of the building by uniformed officers and referees, while laughing maniacally at her trail of destruction. Nikki then cuts a promo on Lynch the next night on Raw saying last night wasn't the end of her playtime with Becky, and she plans to end it at Extreme Rules in a last woman standing match. There will be no shortcuts, no pins or submissions, and she will have free reign to beat Becky within an inch of her life and take her title. After some weekly dominant victories by Nikki, Becky later returns nursing a black eye and slight bruising on her back. She cuts a passionate promo saying, "Is that the best you got, Nikki?" No, can't do an Irish accent either. Not doing the accent. "Is that the best you got, Nikki? I've been hurt worse, and I'm still standing, and I will be the last man standing when I knock you the hell out at Extreme Rules." Cross then jumps Becky from the crowd, and the two fight it out until Becky cracks Nikki with a kendo stick. The segment ends with Becky standing tall with the kendo stick, but the camera cuts to Nikki Cross laughing and rolling on the ground in pain and pleasure. Shit crazy. At Extreme Rules, Nikki and Becky go for each other during Becky's entrance, and it's chaos. Weapons, table spots, crowd fighting, ladders, scary dives, the whole 9 yards. after both women fall onto the stage through a stack of tables and do a near double countout spot. Becky stands on her own 2 feet just before 8, just in time to beat the 10 count and win the match. Becky retains, and Cross just looks lost. And Lynch helps Nikki to her feet, and Nikki is on the brink of tears. She's so angry and frustrated, but Becky gives her a big hug, raises Nikki's hand in respect. Nikki walks away, confused, but nods in respect to Becky. Nikki later goes on to feud with Alexa Bliss for SummerSlam, but now Nikki Cross is seen as a credible threat on the roster with support from the fans who will hopefully congratulate her on her tremendous effort and want to see her grow even more. Becky continues her summer of fun by entering a feud with the underrated Naomi. Naomi is great in the ring. She can talk and work a great match with anyone. This feud is a simple one built on respect in the women's division. Draw some story elements from the Divas Revolution to the Women's Revolution thing, and basically make a program highlighting on how things have changed for the better for the women of WWE. But there can only be one leader of the Women's Revolution. Becky and Naomi do their thing at SummerSlam with Becky retaining once more, but the story surrounding it is recognizing the incredible work rate of the women's division. Hopefully, this should give them a lot more attention and fan investment. Naomi and Becky shake hands after the match, and now moving on to the next feud. Get ready, cause it's boss time! Always wanted to say that. Sasha steps up to the plate and challenges Becky Lynch for the title after returning from her hiatus. Keep everything the same from their story, the DQ finish at Clash of Champions and the match of the year at Hell in a Cell. Becky retains, but I would have Sasha do a lot of damage to Becky's leg during the Hell in a Cell match, and Becky leaves the ring with a limp. This is important. Now it's time for some new opponents going into Survivor Series and TLC. The night after Hell in a Cell, Becky comes out on crutches and has to be helped into the ring. Oh no. A frustrated Becky cuts an emotional promo, thanking Sasha for a great match, thanking the fans for supporting her, and announces that she has a kayfabe leg injury. When it looks like Becky might have to relinquish her title after all this hard work, out comes the Riot Squad, minus Ruby Riot due to her shoulder surgery. Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan taunt the man for being a coward, trying to weasel her way out of a title match thanks to losing her smile, as they call it. Morgan says that if Becky is man enough, she'll give her the title as a way to pass the torch to the new blood. However, Becky gives her the middle finger, Stone Cold style, prompting Sarah to kick away her crutches, and the squad beat Becky while she's down. Becky's great at selling a beatdown, so this should give the Riot Squad a lot of good ass heat. A cool little thing I'd add for the squad is that they spray paint insults on their opponents, like the NWO. They spray coward on Becky's back in yellow, and on the title, Riot Squad. Of course, Becky doesn't show up the next episode on Raw. Instead, throughout the weeks of build-up, we see vignettes of Becky training and rehabbing her kayfabe injury, and pushing herself to be prepared for her triple threat match with Bayley and Shayna Basler at Survivor Series. But she has not forgotten the ass whooping she promised the Riot Squad. This builds up Becky's tenacity and pride as a wrestler, while also making her vulnerable, open to discuss her faults, and is committed to overcoming them, no matter the struggle. Becky then exacts revenge on the Riot Squad by attacking them with the crutch that she no longer needs for the Go Home Raw show. She later stares down Bayley and Shayna to end the show. At Survivor Series, Shayna still gets the W after Becky is distracted and ambushed by the Riot Squad, and they stop Becky from getting the win. The Riot Squad then escape before Becky can kill them, and Shayna still goes through the announce table by Becky to set up their feud for WrestleMania. Finally, with all the hype surrounding Becky's return to action at Survivor Series, Becky rides that momentum and battles the Riot Squad in a 2-on-1 handicap chairs match for the Raw Women's title at TLC. Becky retains after locking Liv Morgan into a chair-assisted disarmer. Ouchies! Moving on to the Royal Rumble 2020. At the Royal Rumble, Becky wins her match against Asuka like in real life, but I'm going to give Asuka and Kairi Sane a bit more of the spotlight in the feud with Lynch and Basler. So, Shayna Basler debuts at number 30, but she wins the Royal Rumble by eliminating Charlotte. Fast forward to Basler going into cannibal mode on Lynch and declaring her title match, and this leads to the Women's Elimination Chamber match. But instead of Shayna running wild in the chamber, and since she already has a title shot thanks to the Rumble, I want to have Becky defend her Raw Women's Championship in the chamber instead, with Nikki Cross, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, Asuka, and Kairi Sane as her opponents. Sorry not sorry, Natalya. Becky and Asuka are the final two, and Lynch wins with the disarm her. After Becky's big win, Shayna comes out of nowhere and chokes out Asuka from behind with the Kirifuda clutch. Becky makes the save while Shayna backs off. Shayna then grins and points to the Titantron that shows footage of all the women who were eliminated and sent to the back after the match, beaten down and surrounded by medical staff. And Kairi Sane is noticeably coughing up blood and crying. Oh my sweet lord. What a monster. The next night on Raw, Becky cuts a passionate promo on her hard-fought victory in the chamber, but condemns the actions of the coward Basler, who didn't have the guts to fight these hard-working competitors fair and square. Basler comes out to the ring and then says Becky fears what she doesn't understand. If Becky really wants to prove that she's the man, that she's not afraid, that she runs this division, Shayna wants to raise the stakes at Wrestlemania. She proposes a no DQ submission match at Wrestlemania for the Raw Women's Championship so she can take the one thing Becky loves more than her championship: her pride. Becky, never one to back down from a challenge, nods and says with a smirk, "Game on, bitch." I'm still not doing the accent. Sorry. She says, "Game on, bitch," and punches Basler right in the face. Basler smirks right back and gives Becky a punch of her own, and then a pull-apart brawl ensues to end the segment. In the build-up to Mania, the two of them trade intense sit-down interviews with juicy sound bites and thinly veiled threats about tapping each other out, like in real life. Becky and Shayna then trade victories against other superstars during the build-up with their own submissions, and 2 weeks before Mania, while Shayna is cutting an intense war of words, Asuka calls out Shayna for a confrontation. Asuka has been AWOL since Elimination Chamber, and in a backstage interview, she says that she has spent the past 2 weeks in the hospital looking after her best friend Kairi, but all she could think about was revenge. Asuka waited so long, and she wants Shayna in a no-holds-barred match tonight. Shayna accepts with the most evil-looking grin on her face. After a brutal match, Shayna walks away with the win after choking out an emotional and desperate Asuka in a chair-assisted Kirifuda clutch. Becky rushes out to save Asuka, but is laid out by Basler, who then locks Becky in the clutch before the referees can pull her off. Becky is then caressing her neck and glances at a defeated, battered Asuka. For the first time in a long time, Becky is scared, shaking with fear about how she will beat Shayna at WrestleMania. The go-home Raw begins with a contract signing between Becky and Shayna. The two sign, and when it comes time for Shayna to cut a promo, Becky yanks the mic out of her hand and trash talks Basler hard. Basler then yanks the mic out of her hand and promises to break Becky at WrestleMania. Another pull-apart brawl ensues and ends with Becky finally locking Shayna in to disarm her and being pulled off by officials. And now, WrestleMania 36, Becky Lynch versus Shayna Basler, no DQ submission match for the Raw Women's Championship. 20 minutes, including chair shots, weapon-assisted submission moves, and an epic story in between. Though Becky is wrestling like it's her retirement match, Shayna is gaining the upper hand slowly but surely, and soon Shayna locks in the Kirifuda clutch while Becky fights with all her might. She passes out due to the pain, a la Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13. Shayna wins the match and the Raw Women's Championship, choking out the man and standing tall as the new face of the women's division. Becky walks out on her own, pushing away any medical help and looking just lost. After a full year, her reign at the top is over. Now, what happens next? Becky leaves for a month and returns to Raw in May after Money in the Bank, which Asuka still wins and keeps the briefcase, by the way. Becky announces her pregnancy and calls out Shayna to claim that Shayna was the better man at WrestleMania and that she has her respect. They shake hands and Becky walks away from the WWE ready to become a mother with the evil Seth Rollins. Aww. Now Shayna can go on a Brock Lesnar monster run with the championship. Only difference is she's there every Monday night. With a reinvigorated Asuka holding the Money in the Bank briefcase, I would have her maybe announce her cash in for SummerSlam or maybe WrestleMania 37. But that is how I would book Becky Lynch's Raw Women's Championship run from 2019 to 2020. We've made Becky Lynch into more of a sympathetic badass who is humble and grateful even in defeat. We have the spotlight on new and underused talent like Nikki Cross, Naomi, and the Riot Squad. And of course, we have a new strong champion in Shayna Basler to carry the torch as an MMA submission queen. Becky's title run now feels like the strong and popular run it should have been. Do you disagree? How would you do it? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to see more videos, please subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. I'm Maverick Storm, the King of Wrestling. Have a blessed day.